All right, Mr. Brown, now that we've got our exemplar responses mapped out, we can exchange and compare them, and we'll see what's similar and what we can do to make a better one. All right.
Okay.
So I'll give that to you. You give me yours.
Yeah.
All right. All right. So, oh, I see that your format was you did a thesis statement and then you did the bulleted entries for your reasons.
Yeah, I found that even though like my higher performing students are in general, I try and get all of the students to write and complete answers, short answer essay format. I found that in making it more concise for some of my ESL and EB students to understand, that just a simple statement and the bullet points would have been a bit more digestible for them. So while not the highest level that I would expect, it is the baseline that I would need to meet for all my students for them to understand.
So I think that's a really good way to do it, and that way it's differentiated for them, and they can all follow that format really easily. So I think that's something I would change about mine. I put mine, as you can see, I put mine into the paragraph form.
Yeah.
I see that you chose the Federalist. On my exemplar, I went with the Democratic Republicans, and we both listed out the reasons that we chose them. So now we can look at. So we agree I'm gonna revise my exemplar and add in your format just to make it easier for the kids to add on to. Is there anything that you'd like to add to it after looking at it?
No, I felt that, I mean, this was one that, a lesson that I've taught for a little while, so I had a pretty good, solid
Handle on it?
understanding of what the important part that the kids would need to get out of it.
All right, so I'll hand that one back to you.
There you go.
All right, so the next step is the plan for error.
Mm-hmm.
And I believe we spoke about before in the misconception area for this task, we want to make sure that all the kids from your previously taught vocabulary, it was the political parties and the difference for the Democratic Republic, right?
Yeah, the way that works is that these kids have for so long have heard Democrats or Republicans, but the actual name of the party back then was Democratic Republicans. And I've noticed in previous classes and years before that whenever writing or referring to this, that they'll refer to one or the other as different entities and not as one. So that tends to create some confusion for them. And then also political parties. Party is in general the kids to understand what a political party or a party in that sense means, because that's kind of the tricky thing about social studies is one word meaning multiple things.
Right. So I guess just to have like an open-ended question for them, you select, guys, we're in social studies class right now. So if I say party, are we talking about a birthday event or
a group of people getting together to achieve a common goal? Something of that nature tends to.
And that would be the student's exemplar response to
Yes.
the question. It's not an event, Mr. Brown. This is when the guys are working together to accomplish something.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And for the Democratic Republican, asked, was it just the Republican Party or the Democratic Party? And the exemplar response, like you said, would be no, they were one party together. And I guess to help them understand, you would say the Democratic Republican Party was one, and the other party was what, guys?
You get them to understand that, the Federalist.
All right. And for the differentiation for our SPED students and the EB students, like I said, I really like your format of how you model that answer. They give that one statement in response to the question, and they can just bullet point so they make sure they've got their 3 responses of evidence of why they would choose that. All right. So we got that. And the next part is the means of participation planning. We want to make sure, number 1, that 100 students think about this question with a think ratio. We want to make sure the students discuss this question, participation, and that the students receive feedback to their response. So we're already going to have a classroom discussion where we will stamp both parties' positions.
Mhm.
So you'll go into the part in the notes where the Federalists think these core values, and also the Democratic Republicans have these core values, correct?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, so at what point, you said there'd be a turn talk at some point where they would discuss that, correct?
Yeah, so we basically set up the characteristics of each party. And then at one point, when we get to the task, is I have the kids they look over the kind of the information we were doing and then pick which one they would join. And then the kids discuss that with each other. And then we give the kids time to think about it, comparing the notes, and then writing their reasons.
Right. Right. And that's the point of the actual activity. They're actually not only knowing the facts, but they're also putting themselves in those situations. So like, I identify with this party and their ideas. I think that would be the right way to address those issues.
Yeah.
Going into the new government under the Constitution. All right, so for the turn talk, were you thinking about 1 minute, 2 minutes? How long do you think it would take them?
For the turn and talk, I think that you're looking at 3 to 5 at most, and you have to gauge that with how the level of discussion going on. If it's something that the kids have a firm grasp of, you're looking at 3 minutes. But if it's something they're still working out with each other, you're looking more towards 5.
And they're already going to have the T-chart to compare the Federalists and the Democratic Republicans from the note-taking section in the I do and the we do. But on this part, where we're actually going to let them write out their responses, either typing it into their Chromebooks or the handwritten response. How many minutes do you think they need to do that?
To give them an appropriate amount of time, I would probably give them about 20 minutes to be able to really formulate an idea, think about it, and then argue their position. However, if they finish sooner, and that's usually, you have a good idea, because once they start doing something like that, you got to walk around the room and kind of keep an idea. And mainly you're looking for the kids who, once you get 4 or 5 minutes into it and they haven't written anything down, they're going to need some feedback, or maybe some prompting to help get them motivated. Maybe even some sentence stems that might start them. Other kids are going to take off like a shot, and then you just want to kind of catch to make sure that they're not hitting those misunderstandings, like the separation of what a party is and the idea of the two different parties.
I kind of agree with you. I think some of them, just from the note taking and listening to the earlier part, they'd be able to identify which party they'd lean toward early. But I think actually, after they get past that first reason, they might have to do a little bit longer to actually come into the first and second reason for their answer. So I agree with that. You said that you were going to do the active monitoring during the independent work and give them feedback at that time based on what they were producing.
And then kind of to summarize it all in the end, then it becomes an open class discussion where anybody has some cold calling, some volunteering, where we're talking about our positions and the reasons why we picked that and discussing it amongst each other.
All right. And your sampling you'll get during the active monitoring, you'll sit there and see what they're giving you. Okay, so now we're gonna hit pause and we're gonna run down to the classroom and we'll practice the exemplar model in the classroom and we will go from there.
Okay, excellent.
I said that way.